Hey, we are on the air everywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, this is WeatherBrains episode number 554. This is the pre-show for August 29th. Day we all know well from 11 years ago, anniversary of Katrina. This is James, and I'm doing the show by myself tonight. No guests, no other hosts, just me and a bunch of rants. No, I'm just kidding. Although I could do it tonight. We've got a lot of rants. So, Bill, I thought it was just me and rants tonight. Uh-oh, Bill's on that crappy hotel Wi-Fi. Where are you?
I'm in Norfolk.
National Weather Association time?
Yeah, I thought I'd get here a little early.
When does it start?
No, I had to come for last-minute preparations for Weatherfest. It doesn't start till a week from Saturday.
Okay. How much does that job pay, that vice president job? Is that
the same salary that WeatherBrains pays?
Well, wow. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And Aubrey's back after her sabbatical.
I'm back. Can you hear me?
Hear you good. Audio sounds crisp and clear.
Great.
And as usual, the camera's not working, but
as usual, because looks like we're probably going to have to turn it off and turn it on again.
Well, I've got a song for you.
Have you tried turning it off and on again? Off and on again. Off and on again.
Yeah, so I have I raced in here at the last second. There's no telling what I have not done, but I'll figure it out as we go. A rather unusual assignment this evening. Had to a football game. And so I have been on the sideline of a football game. And I was not plowed. The worst thing you can do is when you go to the side to get you one of those sideline passes and you're standing on the sideline and you got to play. They're running a sideline route, and before you know it, like a bunch of 300-pound guys have just totally smashed you. So, but all right, no, we're ready to go here. I think we're good to go. I tried to do the prep in advance. It's been a very busy day today, goodness. And tomorrow's going to be busy too. But busy is better than being bored. It has been wall to wall today.
Tell me you can hear me, James.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I had to find some earbuds real quick. My microphone broke in the plane or on the plane in the bag. The screw came out, and I can't find the screw in my bag, so
wow.
I can't use my mic, so I'll have to use the condenser. But we have a great guest tonight. We have a magnificent guest.
Hey, look who's here. She's back. Chief meteorologist. That's awesome. That is just awesome. Uh-oh, now we can't hear you. Her audio was perfect a minute ago. Now we got video and no audio. This is thoroughly confusing. And for those that don't know, this is the part of the show where we share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and occasionally say outrageous things. And we get our guests lined up and get the technical snafus under control. And we start the show here in about 6 minutes. We will... what happens? We join a television audience. We're simulcast on television, and typically we try and go about 30 minutes after the hour. So if you're watching the video replay over on YouTube, just scrub down a few minutes and you'll actually see the start of the show. Aubrey, try another one. Oh no, still you sounded so good. Your audio was just like perfect a few minutes ago, and now we can't hear. So yeah, I was Bill. I was at a football game tonight.
So, like a scrimmage or what, James?
Look, man, I've got me a real pass here.
Were you like the coach or like a work press or what?
Team bench.
You're like the bench dad?
You know, I coached. I was a VIP coach UAB during a spring game a few years ago, and I lost the game.
Right.
I'm surprised they invited me back. No, UAB football was killed off, and it's coming back. And
so it'll be back for 2017. Is that right?
Right,
James?
right. They don't play this year, so they're going to do a couple of scrimmages, and they will be kicking off for good next year. They play in Legion Field, the old Gray Lady, for 2 years, in 2017 and 2018. 2019, they moved into a new stadium in downtown Birmingham, which we are very excited about. But no, the deal was a very sweet couple. They bid on a little. You get to be on the sideline with the host of WeatherBrains, and they were very sweet, and they bid, and the money goes to the UAB Athletic Fund, and had a great time. But I told them, guys, it's Monday night. I can only stay for an hour, so I was down there between 7 and 8. The UAB police were great. I mean, they got me in, parked right by the gate, got me out, so we're going to start the show on time. I was a little worried about getting back, but we're good. Aubrey, say something.
How about now? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we have a winner.
All right, we have video and audio.
What did you do?
I closed it out and reopened it.
Have you tried turning it off and on again? Off and on again. Off and on again.
And that's why I got promoted to chief.
Woohoo!
That's a great story. That's awesome.
All right, I'm going to go call our guest real quick. I'll be back.
Okay. I know Brian is out. So Brian, Aubrey, he's working the morning shift. You've worked that morning shift.
Unfortunately, yes.
And I think he used to get here at like 2:30 or 3 or something. I mean,
It is. Ugh.
it's brutal, but I mean, who sleeps? I mean, I haven't slept since 1973. I mean,
I know, and that's your health, James. You need to sleep.
I'm working out. I've started working out 3 days a week. There's a place right across the street, and they are brutal, man. They will kick your rear end over there. I mean, it's.
Oh, I bet.
I do it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for an hour in the middle of the day, and whoo, man, it's after the first session, my legs were so sore I thought I'd never walk again.
Are they shaking? The legs shaking?
Yes, it was horrifying.
That's good. That's a feel-good feeling.
No, it is, and I know that you've got to get in it. They say the hardest part is just coming back. So today was number 3, and so I'm feeling good. This is going to work. So if you can't sleep, you might as well work out. I've got to adjust the diet.
Yep.
We all know that.
Yep.
I'm not going to eat kale. I'm not going to eat kale all day, but I'm not going to eat cakes all day.
The cakes. Yep. I'm screen sharing the picture. I haven't been on since I've been to Oklahoma City.
I see my pals Kevin and Rick.
Yep. So I got to meet Kevin and Rick, and
and you should hear me. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Those warm
You talking to Aubrey? You talking to Aubrey or me?
He's talking to all of us. This is the famous John Zarella.
Yep, infamous.
All right. Cool.
Hi, Aubrey.
Hi, how are ya?
Good.
You know James.
I do.
John, you're looking
Turns out
good,
y'all
man.
covered your first hurricane together, James, and you didn't even know it.
Do I now?
You and John Zarella covered Hurricane Frederick.
Yeah,
That was
back
your
in
first hurricane.
779.
So we'll have to talk about that.
So, a lot of people are expecting some really good rants on this show tonight.
Not
Kevin,
from me.
Kevin, you are the rant guy, but you're not going to do it, are you? You warned us. But so what's the social media got to do with the national news organizations fouling things up?
I think it was an enabler.
So you think social media is the reason that they got the tropical stuff wrong?
No.
Let me welcome our television viewers. It's 30 after the hour. Welcome to those watching on the TV side. And I think we're all here, which means we can actually get this thing started. Bill, are we all here?
We are all here.
Nate is not, but Nate typically JIPs. joins in progress. So,
Rick, are we talking tomorrow or no?
Yeah, like afternoon, 11:30. I forgot what the email said, but
Oh, I didn't
Sure.
see one today. Was there one today?
no, it's whatever the one you sent over the weekend.
Oh, I think that had a choice of Tuesday or Thursday. We're going for tomorrow?
Sure.
Okay.
obviously, this is some high-level secret talk that nobody else is
Inside.
invited. Yeah, inside top-level secret here. Let me get the.
Mark Zuckerberg's going to be on the call, too.
Oh, great! All right, here we go in. Here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This episode of WeatherBrains is brought to you by the Soch Reports, providing meteorologists with social media insights to grow their brand and followers. Broadcasters, stop by the booth at the National Weather Association meeting September 11th through the 13th in Norfolk, and a little bit later in this podcast, learn about a great offer only available for those who are attending the NWA annual meeting.
WeatherBrains episode number 554. This is for August 29th. 2016. Hey, thanks a lot for joining us. This is James, and we got a fun show going on here tonight. The next time we do the show, guess what? It's going to be meteorological fall. Just saying that sounds refreshing. Brian Peters is out tonight, the internationally beloved meteorologist. For it is 12 hours of sleep. No, I think they get here at like 2:30 or 3, and he just decided he had to go get some sleep. He's alert, alive, and doing well. Are you not? Oh, Kevin.
Oh, I'm having some connectivity issues. You better introduce someone else.
Oh, great. He is back. Ladies and gentlemen, the talented, the special, the chief meteorologist, Aubrey Urbanowitz, after her little extended absence, is back, and are we glad to have you back or what?
I'm so glad to be back. It's been too long.
Yay.
I mean, it's just awesome. And we're going to do a 4-hour email segment tonight
Oh my
to make up
gosh.
for all the missed emails.
Well,
Now, tell us.
I got to see Rick on my little absence.
It was very
Yeah.
cool.
I saw a picture of you with two shady guys in
Yes.
Oklahoma City a few minutes ago.
Yeah, that was Rick and Kevin Clazel. They graciously allowed me into their building, their office, the weather mecca, the holy land of weather, and gave us a great tour, my husband and the couple that we were with, and it was really exciting.
Awesome. Cool. That's a great place. In fact, we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the famous WeatherBrains live show we did at the National Weather Center. That was just way too cool. But it is great to have you back. And Kevin Selly says he has bandwidth problems, which means he has selective hearing. He just wants to hear certain things. I know
Maybe
what
he'll
you're trying to
respond
do
to my
here.
questions. Kevin, how are you doing tonight?
I am well, Aubrey. How are you?
Good, we missed you in Oklahoma City.
I was so bummed out that I couldn't get up there.
Oh, I was so bummed too. I know. Now I've got a couple. I've met Bill officially. I've met Rick.
Yeah.
I unofficially met James several years ago at my Mississippi State Weather Conference, but I didn't know who he was back then, and he didn't know me. So,
Right.
we'll
So
call
is
it even.
anybody else you're missing, or just me
Two
now?
ships passing in the night.
Of course, I got to meet Brian. I've got to meet Nate, and then unofficial Dr. John Scala.
Oh, so I'm not the only one. Okay, well,
No.
that makes me feel a little better. I
I've
guess.
got like a collage, kind of like an America's Most Wanted photo, but it's who I've met so far and who I'm missing. So we'll see if I can should be able to knock out Nate, and I'm assuming Dr. Scala at NWA in Norfolk.
Oh, nice.
Aubrey, we really should have gone down in the atrium where we took the rest of the WeatherBrains picture.
That's
Yes.
right.
Oh, we could have photoshopped me
Could have gone
in.
right there. Photoshopped you in. Darn it. Next time.
That's funny. That's funny. I know. I'm very grateful. I may never get to Oklahoma City again, and it was just a cool. Even just the scenery, the drive down was just, from someone on the East Coast who doesn't experience that, who doesn't get to see the planes. It was, it was definitely very cool, and I'm very grateful that we had the opportunity to do that.
Trust
Nate
me, the
Johnson
mountains
is
are
in.
better.
Nate Johnson is in Raleigh, North Carolina. They're getting set for a Category 8 tropical depression coming in there. Are you What the NBC headlines say tonight? It was as bad as their tweet yesterday.
I don't even look. It was bad.
Yeah,
It was
all
just
these
bad.
people do screen grabs of the.
I liked what you did with the NBC tweet over the weekend. I thought that was nicely done. Hey, look, this we can't do this, and I think we're perhaps a little too polite when it comes to this sort of thing. I think we need to start if we're going to be serious about this whole social media sharing and being responsible on Facebook. I know Kevin's laughing, but if we're going to be serious about it, then we need to be serious about it and be willing to call people out if they're doing it over and over and over and over and over again, which we seem to have a lot of.
This is the NBC Nightly News.
Oh, yes.
Open this evening. Bracing for impact, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. So Kevin, you're not going to say anything. You don't care if they get this stuff wrong.
I went on my rant last week, and then in the
You
wake
think that fixes it, Kevin? You have to rant every week.
No. I went on my rant, and then I wrote about it the next day on the Digital Meteorologist blog. And it's funny because John Scala was the one that gave me the nickname the Accelerant because of all the ranting and trouble making and things like that. And everybody else is ranting now. I'm the only one that's not ranting anymore.
Because you've stopped caring, Kevin.
No.
That hurts. That hurts, Kevin.
We've
rant a little. Let us know you still care.
We've crossed that line. As James said that I say, the horse is out of the barn. But
your wood's wet, man. Come on.
Huh?
Your wood's wet. You got to come on, flame up, man. Let's go.
No, because the horse is out of the barn. It's not going to change. It's just not going to change. It's not going to change. As I said last time, I was right the last time. I'm right this time, but no one's going to listen to me. Show title. No one's going to listen to me.
All right, Cassandra.
That's okay. There are ways that I think I could help. If some of those things fall into place, I will be able to help. If they don't, I won't. But I guess I'm just too old anymore. I just can't.
You're old and decrepit.
Here's that Nate did the show title. If we're going to be serious about social media, putting serious and social media in the same sentence that's the perfect show title right there. Maybe that's the next T-shirt. Serious about social media. WeatherBrains.com.
And this is the song you need to hear.
Let's get social. With social media, where we can spread the word and grow our reach and find our fans in their newsfeed.
Oh boy!
You bring up a good point, though, Nate, about the caring part. Is that the people that are executing this stuff, they're the ones that don't care, and we're not going to change any of that.
Sadly, you're right about that, and
yes,
that makes me very sad.
I went back and listened to a little of last week's, and James said, you were talking about, well, these people sitting in their mama's basement or whatever, and at one point you said, well, that's fine that they're exercising their passions and working on it and saying these things. And he said they need a place to do this. Well, this is it. They have their place. It's social media. You're not going to create another place for them to do it. This is where they're going to do it. They're not going to change from that. And then as far as the credibility and the seals and all that kind of stuff, we're past that time. We're past that time. It doesn't matter anymore. The people that are doing it don't care. They're going to continue to do it. As the GFS eventually goes out beyond 384 hours, they'll do that too.
The CFS already does.
Yeah.
So we got two issues. So yeah, we got jabronis on social media putting up 384-hour Category 5s, but this is NBC Nightly News. NBC Nightly News.
Right.
Hurricane churning in the Atlantic threatens to dump heavy rain on Florida. How far is Gaston away from Florida? What, 1,500 miles?
At least.
So here's the problem. I mean, have we become a nation full of idiots Have we become a nation that's so uneducated, with no ability to read maps, no geography skill, no science skill? Have the journalists become these people that don't fact check? They just make up crap like that. Has it gotten to that point? Is this the end of Western civilization?
No, they were always already there. Mark Zuckerberg said this years ago on Facebook. He said, and I'm talking about just in any group, not crazies, not idiots, not people sharing irresponsible social media stuff, but any group, basket weavers. Tracy runs a piano teachers group on Facebook. He said groups already existed. Organizations of people already existed. He said what I did was give them elegant organization. And he did do that. And now he's elevated all of those voices to the same level. They were already there. It's just that they have a communication channel now. They didn't just appear in the last couple of years.
But social media is fine, but look at this stuff, all right? So let me pull up another one. And a lot of people are listening and they're not watching. So this is one from some site called the what is this? The Daily
Mail.
Oh my
Mail.
goodness.
Yeah, the Daily Mail. That was
So this thing says Hurricane Gaston becomes the first major hurricane of the season and threatens Florida and North Carolina. What idiot? What moron could look at basic data and come to this conclusion? And that's my struggle is, who are these people? Who's writing this?
Yeah,
Where are these people coming from?
NBC thing.
In our defense, though, at least with this one, the Daily Mail is known for this overseas. This is
like a tabloid. I don't know who these people are.
So they're sort of I don't even want to lump them into a category here, but apparently that's sort of their thing. NBC has no excuse. That was a social media producer or somebody who didn't fact check, who just rushed to get something tweeted out and made themselves look like an idiot as a result. And I can forgive that every now and again. We all make mistakes. They did it again a couple of days later.
But it's perfect. It's perfect that it was NBC because we had them. It was what's the Rascone fellow's first name? Can't remember his first name. Jacob Rascone. Yeah. Nice guy, came on the show, but that was what, 3 months ago, 4 months ago tops, and it was NBC News, and there was some botched thing. The other thing that the social media is doing, and all these communications channels, is this is what I was thinking about this morning as these crazy things were going by. We get all wound up when these mistakes go by because this is something that we know about, right? We don't know about anything about basket weaving, but if NBC or anybody else botches a story on basket weaving, the basket weavers are sure going to know about it. But this is what's going on in the 24-hour news cycle. It's a reality. It's not going to change, and you're not going to go to them and say, well, stop it. Well, no, they can't. They're in this 24-hour news cycle with 100 different channels they got to feed, and the beast wants to be fed.
And they're doing more with less. How many times have we heard that?
Exactly. It wants to be fed, and we're going to continue to feed it.
And here's my problem: if they botch stuff we understand,
right?
Like you're saying here,
that was my point.
It seems like all they're doing now, the left-wing guys are bashing Trump, the right-wing guys are bashing Clinton, and that's all they do now. They don't even pay attention to anything else. It's just like, who do you believe? Where do you go? I'm not going to watch these jabronis that come up with this stuff. There is no source. To me, where is there a national credible source for news now? I'm very discouraged. I used to like watching the news. I can't watch these guys. I mean,
there's one show that is giving an unbiased look at the political side, and that's the Bloomberg show that comes on at 5 in the afternoon with the two political guys. If you want to know what's going on in the presidential election and you want to get it straight down the middle, that's the only source. And I want to hear what John Zarella has to say about this, because he was at CNN for 1 million years. So, John, what do you think about where we're going with all this stuff?
Well, I think you guys talk about the 24-hour news cycle, and it's not 24 hours anymore. It's about 24 minutes, and you're moving to the next, the next cycle. And you talk about these mistakes that are being made. Well, when you mentioned fact checking, well, there is nobody checking the people that are writing these things. They're just, because they're putting stuff out so fast. It's like when I was at CNN, and even today, you'd write a news story, you'd put it together, and it would go to a supervising producer's desk. and they would fact check and they would go over your scripts with you before you ever went into edit with the piece. They still do that today. But when it comes to social media and the stuff that's being put out, that same level of scrutiny is just not there. Somebody's writing something. It can't be. You're right. It absolutely can't be.
It's the same thing with the various analysis shows and live guests and everything. That they took a lot of heat from Malaysia 370, and you're having to fill all of this time with content, and it's become a joke in some quarters. We just need to produce enough content to fill this amount of time. But at some point, you get to where we can fill the time. And we just start stripping away the editorial layers, John. You're talking about I'm going to have a script review, and I'm going to have another set of eyes look over this, and I'm going to have somebody else double check all the graphics. That it doesn't happen nearly as much as it used to. I remember back in the day, when I was interning at a local TV station, WRAL here in Raleigh, that before every newscast, it was somebody's job to flip through all of the supers, all of the graphics that show up on screen, and spell check. We don't do that anymore. We don't have time. We do 2.5 hours of news every afternoon from 4 to 6:30. And when we start the 4, the 6 isn't even produced yet. So how could we have time to actually flip through them in a monitor and look and see? It's that constant feeding. And this is we've beaten this horse, but it's not changing, but it's something that I feel like is eating away at the credibility of journalism as a profession and TV news as an outlet.
Right, and I think that if when we talk about social media in and of itself, the lines are so blurred between what's fact, what's opinion. It's made it all because of this explosion of social media. It's made it much more difficult to weed out again what's reality, what's just somebody's opinion, and then for the network news organizations, something gets posted on Twitter or on Facebook, and then they've got to run out there and try to validate that before they put it on the air. And so it's even more scrambling that has to be done because you don't want to get beat, but you want to be right, or at least you hope they want to be right before they put something out there. So the whole explosion of social media has just made the job of journalists who are credible journalists all the more difficult.
I vote John Zarella for king.
King of all journalists.
Well, you've heard those you've heard the dulcet tones tonight of a famous American news correspondent, of course, spent a ton of years on CNN. John Zarella, we're honored to have you tonight.
Well, I appreciate it. I know it's called WeatherBrains, so I don't know what I'm doing here, that's for sure. Amongst you guys. And lady.
That's right. That's exactly right. But 11 years ago tonight, I guess we were all beginning to watch New Orleans fill up like a bowl. Talk about that experience, John. You were there. You saw it happen firsthand. Take us through that experience.
It was from the standpoint that we had done a documentary that had aired, I guess, the year before, or the documentary focused on part of it. What would happen if the big one hit New Orleans? And we took everybody through the levee breaks and all the different things that would go on, and nutria, which are these giant rats running through the streets of New Orleans, and just about everything that we had in that piece that we rolled out again right before the storm hit pretty much came to fruition. And we had gotten there a couple of days earlier, and after the storm blew through, everybody was running out on the streets that evening, and they're on Canal Street, and the people are celebrating. We dodged the bullet again. Because a lot of locals would always go and stay in the downtown hotels. They left their homes and they went to the hotels. So the next morning, we wake up after all this celebrating, and I look out the window of the hotel room, and the cars are starting to float on the street. So now we're surrounded by water. And an interesting side note to that is that the day that the hurricane blew through and everybody was celebrating, that afternoon we'd gone out to do a piece. And we're driving down one of the streets, and there's a lot of water. And I'm saying to my photographer and producer, we didn't have that much rain here. How could there be this much water? We saw an old man sitting out on his porch. I literally waded over to him, and went up to him, and with the microphone, of course, asked him, cameras rolling, you know, what is this? Have you guys had this kind of water here before? He goes, no, he'd never seen that since Hurricane Betsy or something, whatever. The one that went through there, I guess it was Betsy. Didn't put two and two together, obviously, but the fact was that we were really in waters that were coming from one of the levees that had broken. Didn't even realize it, of course, until the next morning when we wake up and we find all of this water surrounding us. It filled up fairly quickly in the hotel. Before long, by the end of that day, it was pretty much up to, it was about thigh deep in the lobby of the hotel. So we had to report live from up on the top of the roof of the parking deck. So we had brought all of the crew vehicles up to the top, and we ran car batteries. They had a ladder that got up to the roof, and we had the BGANs, which were the portable satellite dishes. Put them up on the roof and ran them off of the car batteries. And when a car battery died, we'd bring another car up and hook it up. And so that's how we broadcast live for the first couple of days after Katrina went through New Orleans. And so it was nasty. It was really nasty. Finally, they evacuated the hotel, and we all had to get out and try to make our way back to Baton Rouge. And fortunately, most of us did. A few stayed behind to carry the flag, so to speak, but the rest of us got out.
So John, how dangerous did it become in New Orleans after that following day?
You know, we were on the roof, and on Canal Street you could hear the gunfire, and you could see people running down the streets. You could see people who were looting the stores, you know, carrying the TVs and all the different things with them. The day that we left and got out of the hotel, we were on Common Street and 1 block over to Canal, and we drove the cars, the high-profile vehicles that we got out of the parking deck. We drove them on the sidewalk between the wall of the hotel and the street lights. And we managed to get over to Canal, and it was dry in the center where the trolley cars run. So from there, we were going through what's called the Garden District, which is closer to the riverside, so the ground was higher and there wasn't as much flooding. I'll never forget, we passed a Home Depot, and it was just absolutely ransacked. It just, not much left, but people were taking anything and everything they could out of the Home Depot as we drove by. And the image that stuck with me forever has been the image of a guy with the trunk of his car open, taking trays of plants and putting them in his car. For what purpose but the fact of the matter is, if they could take something, they were taking something, which of course is a sad commentary on, you know, our society and, you know, during these events, because I've seen it way too many times over the years. Hurricane Andrew, within hours of it passing, the same thing, and, you know, just about, and so many storms that, you know, I covered over the years who saw it.
Do you feel personally threatened in those situations?
No, I mean, there were a couple of occasions where, you know, there were times in Katrina where we felt personally threatened. While we were trying to get out of the parking garage the day that we were leaving, we had to change a tire. We had a flat, of course, right? That would figure. So we're changing, my producer and I and my photographer, changing the flat tire. Remember, it's pitch black in this parking deck. We've got flashlights, and all of a sudden 3 guys walk in, big guys, and we're the only 3 in the parking garage right now. And they look at us, and they look at some other cars that are lined up against the wall, and They say, you guys know who own these cars? And I say, nope, not mine, pal. You want them? They're yours. Take them. And then they look at us and they say, you got any gasoline? And we had 4 or 5-gallon cans on the roof. So they knew we had gasoline. My producer, he's a good old friend of mine. He goes, we can't give them that gasoline. We may need that gasoline. And I'm saying, we're going to give them whatever they want, and we're going to get the you-know-what out of here as quickly as we can. So, and we did. We gave them 5. I said, here you go. Here's 5 gallons of gas. It's yours. You know, have a nice day. And we had just about fixed the tire and got out of there. Don't know whether they stole any of those vehicles or not. Don't know if they could have got them out of there with all the water. But so there have been times over the years where, you know, you did feel a little bit nervous for yourself. That was certainly one of them.
So John, you know, I really woke up on that Tuesday morning thinking we had seen the death of an American city. And there were people who called for New Orleans not to be rebuilt after that. Now, it's come back pretty strongly, not, you know, maybe not as diverse as it once was, or, you know, there's some other things that have fallen short, maybe better in some ways, worse than others. You know, what if another one rolls up in the Gulf of Mexico? What if this 99L9 thing had been a real storm with a, you know, with a real Madden Julian oscillation pulse coming across and had been another Katrina? Are we ready?
Look what happened just a few years ago. They had one roll through and just about missed New Orleans. I don't recall the name of it. I covered it, but I can't recall the name of it. Maybe Gustav, and went into, what was it, just to the west of New Orleans, and created some terrible, terrible flooding. So I can't imagine, because everybody forgets that New Orleans didn't take a direct hit from Katrina. You know, Katrina sideswiped New Orleans, and it was just the water overflowing the levees and from Pontchartrain primarily, you know, and that swamped the city. So I dread what would happen if there was a direct hit by a major hurricane on New Orleans. I can't imagine that city or any other city being, in this day and age, with the population, you know, growth that we've had down here, you know, whether it's Miami, Fort Lauderdale, the Florida Keys, Tampa, you know, the level of destruction in these urban areas is going to be tremendous.
Well, you know, John, you could literally play Russian roulette with any model. You know, every run you come out just to see which other major city is going to be just, you know, destroyed, whether it's Charleston or Savannah or Miami or New Orleans or Houston. It just goes on and on and on. You know, we're so vulnerable, and that really concerns me. We're going to Norfolk with the National Weather Association. Matter of fact, I'm here tonight in preparation for our Weather Fest that we're going to have on September 10th. And, you know, there are actually discussions about, you know, maybe eventually they might, you know, move away from the downtown area because it's so vulnerable.
You know what's an interesting thing that I had done a piece recently for a client of mine, and it was on climate change. And of course, nobody wants to talk climate change, but these University of Miami researchers have been doing a lot of studies. But if you raise the sea level 3 feet over the next 50 years, 75 years, you took hurricane. They did all this. They ran all the modeling using the National Hurricane Center modeling. And if you took Hurricane Andrew, a small storm, but you put it on the exact same path, but with 3 foot more sea level, now it overtops the ridge. The storm surge doesn't end, you know, a few miles inland. Now the storm surge goes all the way to the west coast of Florida. So, you know, that's something that you and I may not live to see, but, you know, generations from now, they may well be dealing with that added on top of, you know, the already what you get with a major hurricane. Then throw this into the equation.
Well, John, I can't tell you how many hurricanes I watched you cover, and you were social media for me, in the
Yeah.
80s and 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally would, pack, a picnic and sit in front of CNN and watch the hurricanes come in. So, I want to go back first to your very first hurricane. I think you and James, in that year of '79, that's when you got started. Talk about how you did that from WXI in Atlanta.
Yeah, it was one of those things that I don't know where I got. I guess because I grew up in South Florida. I grew up born on Miami Beach, grew up on Miami Beach. So, I went through the Donnas and the Betsy and the Cleos, and I don't know where I got the fascination to cover hurricanes and want to be in the middle of them. But my first opportunity was while I was at WXIA, and I was a producer there. And I talked the news director into sending me with the crew to go to cover David first down in Miami, and that's where I first met Neil Frank, then the director of the National Hurricane Center, with his buzz cut, of course, the famous buzz cut, and then of course it was Frederick after that, which was about 2 weeks later. Frederick was the interesting one because I'd never covered a hurricane before, and neither had the crew I was with. So here we are. We're gathering our elements in Florida. I guess we were in Florida, picking up all the video that we could get, and then we had to go to a feed point. So we had to go to Pensacola to a feed point, which was a big earth station back in the day. Weren't satellite trucks running all over the place. We fed our material, and then we decided, well, we're going to head west. Now it's late in the afternoon. We don't have much communication with XIA. We don't have much in the way other than little transistor radios for information. So we start heading west towards Mobile. Well, we go over, we're on I-10 west. Weather's getting worse and worse and worse. You could see branches flying in front of the car. Next thing you know, we hit the I-10 bridge over Mobile Bay. We're going, okay, this doesn't look like a real good idea, but we're going to go for it. So we start over the bridge. There's abandoned cars. Light poles are down. The waves are actually starting. White foam is breaking over the I-10 bridge as we're driving across it. Of course, you see the sign in front of you. Says tunnel ahead. So now I'm thinking, oh, this is just great. We're going to get down in this tunnel and it's going to be flooded and we're going to really be in trouble. We get down inside the tunnel. Of course, it's dry. We come out the other side and there's a sign, Downtown Water Street. Now, that should have told us something right there. But it didn't. So we get off the exit, and as we're going down the exit, the water's coming up the exit. There's a car against the guardrail, submerged about halfway. There's two people huddled against the guardrail, a guy and a girl. We grab them, we throw them in the back seat of the car. We turn the car around on the off-ramp. We go back into the tunnel. We start knocking on the doors, and finally they open them. And we ended up spending the night in the tunnel control room with the guys who were handling, the work inside those tunnels. So that was.
What time of day was that, John, when you were doing that?
Was right as it turned out. It was probably about 7 o'clock at night. So it was right as Frederick was coming up Mobile Bay. We were crossing Mobile Bay.
Well,
that was a category 3. So
James, that's a unique place to be in the I-10 tunnels during a hurricane. I hadn't thought of that one. How about you?
That's special. And you're right, John. It was so weird back then because we take this stuff for granted now. These satellite trucks and these little live views and how they're doing live shots. But when I was down there, I had to find a phone, a telephone, a landline to call back to the TV station to do a live phoner during the landfall of this thing. And we were so afraid we couldn't get a phone line on the Gulf Coast. We actually stayed in the city of Mobile for the thing. And it was hard enough getting the landline out of Mobile, but people don't understand how primitive it was back in those days. And you at least probably, working in a bigger market could get your stuff back somehow. We had to drive it back. We had to drive back like 4 hours up I-65 to get the video back. So it was nuts.
So James, what did you think? Was Wendell Harris your news director then, or who was your news director?
Yes.
Channel 13. So
Yes.
what did you think when he, as a sort of a rookie, I mean, you were brand new to Channel 13. What did you think when Wendell came to you and said, you're going to the coast?
I thought he was trying to get rid of me. He realized the guy made a big mistake. I was like 23 years old. 23. And I was, the main guy. I was horrible. I mean, really bad. I mean, I'm bad now, but I mean, I was in a whole new world of bad back in '79. I just thought he was trying to, get rid of me. But and I was horrified because that was my week to get used to the TV station. I was not going to be in the air that week. I was going to meet people, learn the system. But the amazing thing, after we drove that video back, they flew us down in the helicopter. They announced we're getting a new helicopter. And so instead of driving, we could at least fly it back and forth for the next few days. But I look back on that, and I think the most riveting video for us was the helicopter video showing that the Dauphin Island Bridge is gone. There's nothing. Nothing. It was gone. Mm-hmm. And, Gulf Shores, it wasn't it wasn't anything like it is now. It's not some big tourist mecca. Back then, it was a small coastal community. And it was gone. But what you see on Gulf Shores today, it started, the rebuilding after Frederick started the path that they're on today. But it was a different, then, we couldn't get data.
So James, do you think that the fact that he sent you to the coast gave you a leg up coming out of the gate in an arms race that occurred between the two major television stations back then?
Well, yeah, I think it was... I think I'd been in hurricanes before with my ham radio gear as a teenager. Hurricane Eloise in 1975 was my first hurricane to actually experience a landfall. I had my ham gear. We were at a high school in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. Doing a hurricane with a ham radio gear is one thing, but coming down there to cover it for mass media is a whole different thing. So I think what it did for me was just give me some experience at a very young age. And I remember some of the lessons learned, to this day about things you do and things you don't do, and conserving batteries and conserving gasoline and, conserving your resources. Even with today's technology, you still got to think about things like that. So, but the helicopter was cool, and I think it was great that I kicked off my career that way. And he didn't get rid of me. I survived.
Yes, you did. So John Zarella, play a little word association with me. Talk about first your most memorable hurricane.
Andrew,
1992.
Yeah.
What stands out about Andrew to you? Just the devastation?
Yeah, and I recall driving south that morning after Andrew. We were in North Miami. Our offices were in North Miami, and there were a lot of trees down, et cetera, et cetera. But as we drove south on the Florida Turnpike to try to get as close as we could to Homestead, just the devastation, it would get, everything obviously kept getting progressively worse. You'd start with the trees, and then the signs, and then some roof damage, and then buildings partially blown apart, then buildings completely blown apart. And I recall calling in and getting a sat phone line out, or cell phone out, and when I was telling them what I was seeing, at first they didn't believe me. The first words were, "No way, it can't be that bad." They didn't believe what I was telling them. And it was just that total devastation. Everything absolutely flattened when you got down into south of Dade and into Homestead. So, that was the one that really stands out to me.
So, I'm sure that there have been hurricanes that have surprised you along the way. What's your biggest surprise that you remember?
I lost you there for a minute.
Sorry, John. Have you ever been surprised by a hurricane?
I think that the biggest surprise I would say was probably Dennis, which is sort of an obscure little hurricane. And of course, there's no such thing as a little hurricane. But it was an obscure hurricane from the same year as Katrina and Rita and Wilma. And Dennis was the first one that we covered that year. And we really didn't expect it to be that much. And that one turned out, that we were in a cell in that storm, Anderson Cooper and I, where stuff was just coming down. The Ramada Inn sign that's about 30 feet high in Pensacola just starts spinning like a top, breaks into a million pieces, aluminum flying all over. So, it was one of those where you were close to the core of the storm, and it wasn't bad where you couldn't report live in it, but it was bad enough that you could really get the sense of what the power of a hurricane is, if that makes any sense to you, because there's so many hurricanes. When they're really, really bad, there's no way you can be out in them anyway. There's no way you can be out there standing there. You're not going to be able to be recording video in the middle of them. And I've always said, that of all the dozens and dozens that I've covered, when you really get down to it, there were probably only a handful where I was actually close to the center when it made landfall. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things because you're just not always going to be exactly there, unless you're Jim Cantori. But so that I think Dennis was one that really was a surprise, and there were a couple of others along the way that kind of. There was one down on the Gulf Coast of Florida also, and the name escapes me, but I remember we were in a Winnebago. What idiots would rent a Winnebago to cover a hurricane?
Well, it's a lot more comfortable.
We had all of it was that. We had all of our gear in the Winnebago, and we loaded it all up, so we had an edit station in there. We were really cool. We had the edit packs in there. We were going to be able to edit and then go to a feed point and do all this. So we end up feeding a piece out again, the same sort of thing as what happened to me, back during Frederick. And so we decided we're going to try to make it to Mexico Beach because the storm was going to be coming up towards Mexico Beach. And it was a Category 1 hurricane, if I'm not mistaken, this particular storm. And we start driving this 2-lane road, and the weather just starts deteriorating. Absolutely horrible. You could not see in front. You couldn't see the road in front of you. The rain was coming right at us. And Steve Sonnenblick, who was my engineer, he's driving this thing, and he's like, we're going to have to be like the cows and, make sure we stay with our heads right into the wind. And then this Winnebago's just starting to rock, and it's rolling, and we felt like we were about to come apart or flip over. There's roofs that are flying off of barns, and you can't make this stuff. Well, you could make it up, but I'm not. And we finally find a farmhouse, and the two photographers, myself and Steve, we abandon the Winnebago, and we run over to this farmhouse, and we start banging on the door. And this, lovely couple was so gracious that they let us in, and so I've spent the night in people's houses. I've been in tunnel control rooms. I've spent the night in a lot of strange places during hurricanes.
So
that one surprised me too.
So what was the closest you ever came to a near-death experience, John, from what you could tell?
I don't, I think I was too stupid to realize that I was in near-death experiences. For much of it, most of the time I felt pretty safe. We always took the precautions. Later on, as we became more experienced covering these things, we made sure that we had, as best we could, we were in solid buildings. We had hotel rooms that were on the second floors. We had ourselves positioned where we weren't going to get hit by debris. So, I guess Katrina was probably, the one where if I ever really, really worried about what was going to happen to us, it was during Katrina, because there was no way to get people in there to get us out, to rescue us if we had to be rescued. And I recall one night we were reporting from the roof of the parking garage, and we got a phone call from the security team in Atlanta, and they got my producer on the phone, on the horn, Rich, and Rich takes the call, and he comes to me and says, listen, I just talked to security, and they said there's a group of armed people heading to the hotel, and you guys and we were going to probably have to spend the night on the roof of the hotel parking garage, because there was no way they could get help to us for sure, and they had no idea what the intentions of these people were. So I said to Rich, I said, look, Rich, let's walk to the edge of the. So we walked to the edge of the parking structure. We looked over to the edge and I said, look, Rich, all around us, we're surrounded by water.
We got a moat.
We got a moat. If they don't have boats, they're not getting to us. So, I mean, that's the best I can tell you. Let's get back downstairs. We'll get into the hotel, and we'll get out of here now. We'll cut the live shot and be done with it now. And I remember a man had taken refuge with his family in one of the buildings across the street. And he opened the window of this building, and he starts yelling across to us and starts yelling about how that they escaped from their neighborhood barely with their lives, that people were being killed and people were being attacked. And it was like, you know, you've got to tell the world what's going on here. And, you know, you're doing the best you can to tell the world, but at the same time, you know, you can relate this man's story, but you have to understand it's his story. We can't verify it. We don't have the facts to say, you know, is what he's telling us exactly what happened, or is, you know, the fear of the moment, has that, you know, exaggerated his story? I think after the fact, we know it probably didn't exaggerate his story, but, you know, in the heat of the moment, who knew? So, but I would say Katrina was probably the event where, you know, we worried the most for our safety.
So the Winnebago story was pretty funny, John. Is that the funniest story that you ever had from a hurricane?
I wish I could remember the name of that darn storm. I want to say Diana or something, but I can't remember what it was. Yeah, I think the Winnebago story was probably the stupidest thing we ever did, was driving a Winnebago into a hurricane. I mean, you know, I've chased storms where I started in Miami, and actually that was Diana up the East Coast. Chased storms, started in Miami and ended up in, you know, Virginia. We chased storms where we ended up flying into, we took it was hurricane, can't remember which one it was. We took one of the hurricanes, they sent us to Boston to cover it. So we had to fly on the last flight out of Fort Lauderdale, and we got up into, and we had to get a flight into Hartford. That was the only thing we could get. So we fly into Hartford, and the weather is just absolutely horrific. And the plane is jostling around, and we're in this soup, and you can see the engines are just, you know, eating all this rain and everything. You can't see anything. The plane's going all over the place. Pilot, after about, I don't know how long it was, could have been 10 minutes, could have been 30 minutes, finally comes on and he says, well, we found a hole in the clouds. We're going to go for it. And we're like, you're going to what?
That's
you know?
pilot for, hey, y'all, hold my beer and watch this.
Yeah. So we get on the ground in Hartford. We get off the plane. There's people actually waiting in the lounge there to get on, and we're like, don't do it. Don't do it. Do not get on that plane. Go home. So we drive through all this lousy weather. We get to Boston. I'm supposed to be on the air starting the next morning, and so we go to sleep. I get up the next morning. The sun is out. It's a beautiful, clear day. The storm had taken that right turn, went out to sea. So we go through all this. Couldn't even get tickets to the Red Sox game that afternoon because it was sold out. We turned around.
Span could have gotten you tickets.
Exactly. We turned around and went home. So, you know.
So now, John, where were you for Hurricane Charlie in 2004? Were you close to that one?
Oh, you know, you keep bringing back all these great memories. I'm going to take a sip of water.
Yeah. We'll cut to the recorded segments now and let.
I got the Charlie. I got Charlie. Charlie was they had originally sent us to Clearwater, and of course, when it became evident Charlie wasn't going to Clearwater, they were like, "Quick, you guys got to head south." So we started heading south, and we got. I don't remember exactly how close we got to it. We ended up doing a couple live shots from a hotel and around Sarasota. And then we said, okay, let's try to get, down to Punta Gorda, see if we can get there. So my crew and I, satellite truck, and there's an entourage. So we had local TV stations following us and everything. So I call the emergency management office and get them on the phone, and I say, hey, we're on our way down there. And they're like, don't. Turn around. We're evacuating the emergency operations center right now. We're moving to another building. Everything is coming apart here. So we all stop. We turn around. We go back to the hotel. And the next morning, very, very early, about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, we get up and we head back to Punta Gorda. And we were the first ones in there, and we got up on a satellite truck as quickly as we could, but we had no communications because everything was down. Everything was destroyed there. There was very little communication. We had one cell phone, and that we could use, and we managed to. There was a rental truck, if I'm not mistaken, so he didn't have satellite phones. So we had one cell phone that we used for IFB for me, for the producer to make contact with the network, and then to give it to me to do for IFB for the live shots off the satellite truck until the rest of the network guys showed up. Anderson Cooper came in later that morning, and they had the CNN truck, so they had better communications. So, but yeah, that was that's so I was there pretty quickly right after it all it all come apart.
So John, were you part of the coverage of Hurricane Opal, or did you get pulled away for O.J. Simpson, or what happened there?
No, isn't that interesting, that whole thing? Because they always say that Opal didn't get the the coverage that it would have got because the verdict had come down that day, right? Wasn't it the Simpson verdict? And caught people by surprise that Opal had blown up to a Category 4. So I wasn't pulled out. In fact, we ended up covering all of the cars and the people that were stranded on the side of the road. I remember the cars just abandoned on the side of I-10. It was an absolute parking lot because everybody tried to evacuate at the last minute, and they couldn't get everybody out. And people were just leaving their cars and walking. So we were there for Opal, and I remember all of what was it? There were boats and everything. What is it, Highway 98 right along the water there? 90, 98? Mm-hmm. That's, and all the sand and the boats that were just sitting right in the middle, big boats that were sitting there right in the middle of the highway there when we finally got back into, I guess we were in Fort Walton Beach, Destin, some of those places.
So John, changing subjects for a second, you were at the heyday of CNN, when it first started. Those had to be pretty heady times.
Oh, the early days, the very early days of CNN. For the first 2 years of my career there, I was the executive producer. I'd been brought in to launch a morning show called Daybreak. So I did that for the first 2 years, which meant, going in at midnight and, leaving at 9 a.m. And after 2 years and that was end of 1981. They went on in 80, and I got there 18 months later in roughly October, November of 83. So those first 2 years I did Daybreak, and then the network offered me the bureau chief's job in Miami. So in 83, I went down to Miami to run the brand new bureau that they were opening there, because I'd been from South Florida, so it made sense. And quite frankly, I begged them for the job because I was so tired of being tired, working those crazy hours at night. And I was just, I'd had it. I'm like, please, anything but that. Enough of this torture. So they gave me the job, and I ended up having to do a lot of reporting because there was so much going on in Florida, and at the time, Florida, we've always said, is just a mixed bag of nuts. It still is, but that's how we used to describe the state of Florida. And there was always some story, and if it didn't matter where something happened, it always had a link to Florida. I mean, everything. It doesn't make any difference. It's got a link to Florida. So, yeah, those were heady times. Those early years. My God, I thought we did. There were times in the very early years where some of the stuff that we did, that we put on the air, the pieces that we did, you wouldn't put on the air in a local market, but it was fill time, like you guys were saying. It was, the wheel, and it was 24 hours, and you just did it. I mean, some of the things that we did. I did a story once on a topless donut shop, in Fort Lauderdale. That's the kind.
I was going to chime in.
Yeah.
And say, at least you guys were trying to do journalism, but the topless donut shop. I can't.
That kind of stretches it right there. So
yeah, well, that was desperation. Those were the desperate times.
So John, you were, of course, close to the shuttle program, and
yeah, very much.
Talk about some of your good memories from that, and then talk about the Challenger disaster for a moment.
I met so many wonderful people. I covered the shuttle program for the most part on a regular basis over the course of almost 30 years. So almost for the entire length of the program, I was involved in covering it to one extent or the other, either as a principal correspondent or the guy that always went to the Cape. I worked, of course, with Miles O'Brien a lot when he was covering space. But I think the best thing about that was all of the wonderful people I met. I made so many good friends. The astronauts that I met, the people that worked at the Kennedy Space Center that I met, and that have become, certainly some of them good friends, some of them, acquaintances, but people that I could always say hello and how are you, or pick up a phone and call, even today. So those were the really, really good memories, were the people that and the friendships that I made that have been lasting. Even Charlie Bolden, NASA administrator, is I consider a very good friend of mine, and many of the astronauts and aerospace workers. But Challenger, it was a weather story in many respects, because a freeze had moved over Florida, and it was bitter cold. And I recall we had gone up to cover Challenger, and it kept getting delayed. So you had cold weather, and then another reinforcing blast of cold weather coming in. So the night before the launch, there was another blast of cold weather coming in. So the network says, can you guys do a freeze story in the orange groves? Sure, we'll go over to the orange groves, we'll file the story, and then we'll run back over to the Space Center. And we didn't have a satellite truck back in those days. 86, we didn't have a truck, based out of Miami. So we just went to the Cape. I filed a piece. We would take the material. We would take it to Disney, and we would feed our material through Disney's uplink. So the plan was we would take our material that we'd shot on the freeze, go to Disney, which we did, feed that material in, then go back to the Cape. And we're figuring, well, no big deal. It's just, it's just another launch. We'll cover the launch, and then we'll go sack out at the hotel. So, of course, we get there, and it is bitter cold. It was below freezing at the time when we got there, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. The launch kept getting pushed back, and we were just huddled in the trailer, just trying to keep warm. And so when the time came for the launch, what we always used to do, which was ritual, was everybody would go down. If anybody can picture this, there's the countdown, the old countdown clock that sat there by what was a turn basin. And so all of the media would go down and watch at the edge of the water with the countdown clock just to the right of us. So we're all down there watching, and Challenger lifts off, and from ground level, all we could see, a minute and change into the flight, was this giant cloud and what literally looked like fireworks coming out from behind the cloud. We could not see from the ground the fireball that people saw on the NASA television images. So and here's veteran journalists that were there who had some guys who covered Mercury were there, and everybody's kind of looking at each other, not fully understanding, at that point what had happened. Everybody thinks it's going to come out from behind the cloud. Of course, it doesn't. Then it starts to sink in. All of us start running towards the press mound where all of the NASA public affairs people were up inside their building, and where the media would all go. And my photographer, he was on a photo mound and shooting through his lens. He had seen the fireball. He could see what happened. I went up to him, and the same guy that I was in the Winnebago with, Steve, and I said, Steve, and he's looking through his eyepiece, and I said, Steve, what happened? And he looks away and he goes, it blew up. And, of course, heart just sinks. And I ran in, up into where all the media was, in the press area, and it's absolute chaos. The NASA public affairs officers are they don't know what to say, obviously. Media people are yelling at them, take us to the landing strip, take us to the landing strip. And the NASA public affairs officer like, nobody's leaving here, nobody's going anywhere, we're not leaving. Of course, the landing strip was because there had been a scenario called an RTLS, which was return to launch site, that in the event of some accident that perhaps the shuttle could make it back to the landing strip. Of course, when you're on the solid rocket boosters, as it was when it blew up, there was no way it was survivable. But nobody really understood what had happened at that point, so there was that thought that perhaps it would come back to the landing strip. And so it was complete chaos in there, and people yelling and screaming at each other. And I remember I went and got on a hardline phone just to call into Atlanta, because again we had no satellite truck, no live capability, and just talking about doing scene setters of what had happened. And so, and my soon-to-be wife was with me at the time. We were engaged, and I had invited her. I said, "Why don't you come and watch a shuttle launch with me?" And it was the first and only one she saw.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Hey.
Yeah.
Let me take a different direction here, John. A lot of the people in Louisiana are fussing that the ongoing flood is getting no national media attention. Do you agree with that? And if so, what's the deal?
I saw, and I watch a lot of it. I watch as much as I can these days. I watch in the mornings and CBS Morning News. I watch CNN. I watch Fox. I try to watch a little bit of everything. And I thought, and I talked to my friends at CNN, my colleagues that I've worked with, and the guys, the photographers that I know, they were there for a week and a half or 2 weeks, week and a half anyway, doing stuff. And and I know from the coverage that I saw, I thought there was a lot of coverage of the flooding that was going on there, and the stories and of the agony and the stories of the survival and what the people were going through. But again, it goes back to what we said at the very beginning here about the 24-hour mindset. It's not even 24 hours anymore. So it's as soon as something runs its course, it's on to the next thing. And I don't think that any network or local station, and again, maybe I'm dead wrong here. My opinion is they don't stay with a story as long as we once did, as long as we used to. And it may just be because you've got to move on to the next thing more quickly now than you ever did before. But I thought there was quite a bit of coverage. It certainly has waned, let's face it, no doubt about it. But in the early stages, it was on every newscast.
Right. And one more question while we're talking, then we got to take a break in a second. Going back to Katrina, 11 years ago today, people in Mississippi felt like they didn't receive adequate coverage. All the attention was on New Orleans. How do you respond to that criticism?
Yeah, I think that's a good substantive criticism, because New Orleans, and in fact, I went back a year ago and did a piece for another client company that I work for, and I did a piece on Katrina 10 years later, and I went into Mississippi, and that was sort of one of the things that you felt when the people said to us in Mississippi, even here 10 years later, that they just felt that New Orleans, because it was New Orleans and it was the big city, and you had all of this massive flooding, that it got all the attention, and that those other communities, Bay St. Louis and places like that, that were hit horrifically, didn't get anywhere near the coverage. And there's no doubt about it. I mean, I don't think there's any mincing words there. There's clearly it was the big city, New Orleans, and it got all the lion's share of the coverage, no question.
Yep, and we could carry this discussion on for a long time, but we have to stop. And Aubrey, have you got 2 minutes for email? Because I
do.
Awesome. Well, so while we got a second. Yeah, we're going to need like maybe 5 hours because we haven't had one of these in a while, but let's get to it.
Letters. We get letters. We get stacks and stacks of letters.
All right, we will try not to take 8 hours as we go through the inbox. So lots of guest suggestions coming in, so we appreciate those. Don't forget, if you do send in a guest suggestion, send in some sort of contact information. That is great. Remington Hernandez sent in a guest suggestion for Maria Molina, who is the morning meteorologist at Fox News. She is also married to Reed Timmer. If you follow
she's, my understanding is she's not going to be at Fox News. She's moving on to the next stage of career. So.
Exactly. So that is why he's bringing it up, that she is leaving Fox News to pursue her PhD. So, of course, weather being her passion, Remington thinks it would be great for us to talk to Maria, so that would be awesome. If not, we can call our good friend Janice Dean and see if we can get Janice to get Maria on the show. So thanks, Remington, for sending that in. Marcus Choop sent us an interesting article about the Louisiana flooding. So apparently a red convertible seen in rescue footage was actually a car that was stolen, and the woman supposedly was driving drunk. So it was a very interesting article about this this car, and let me get back to my email. So thank you, Marcus. Unusual night in Massachusetts. This was from Monday, August 22nd. This was sent in by Scott. Let's see, 3:20 a.m. Weak tornado near Concord, Massachusetts. EF1 rating. And let's see, about a half-mile long was this tornado in Massachusetts that touched down. Jay Farlow wrote in a reply to Nate's live tweeting and appreciated all of the live tweeting. So Nate, of course, you're one of the kings of live tweeting. And then we also have a guest suggestion from Brian Judkins. With exactly 1 year to go until the big solar eclipse in the U.S., could you get Joe Rayo Broadcast met at News 12 Westchester, New York to come on as he's seen many eclipses from around the world, both on the ground and in the air. So that would be very interesting. I know I've had I don't know if a lot of people are asking you guys, I think this one in Africa coming up in September, I guess a lot of people are hearing about it and thinking it's visible in the U.S., but it is not. It is only visible, I believe, only in Africa. And then we have another article. This one was interesting. Let me pull it up. It is a website that called the Hurricane Network, and I don't know if you guys have talked about this on other shows, but it is putting out statements that look an awful lot like official weather statements. And I don't know, is this a blog or is this an actual site?
It's pretty creepy. I don't have the link right in front of me, but I pulled it up, and I don't think anybody would know the difference between their products and the products issued by the National Hurricane Center because they are exactly formatted the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you see the typed out statement with the same font, I mean, who's to absolutely distinguish between? And then we had the one website. What was the one website that gave us all epilepsy?
Oh, brother.
Oh, yeah.
The flashing. I'm not sure. I can't find the email
That
right
was horrible.
now.
Yeah. Don't look at it. It'll.
Your head will hurt for the next 2 weeks.
Yes.
My eyes. I think I got that while I was still doped up from being out on medical leave last week, and I'm not sure I recovered. I'm not sure if it was the medication or the website that did it.
If you think the way the kids talk nowadays with the tweeting and the talking and what do they call it, the abbreviations like the LOL and stuff, the whole website was just full of, I can't even describe, I don't even know, I could not decipher it. It was, I think I'd have a better job deciphering Italian than I would this website because I couldn't understand the language that this guy was trying to write on there. So
hang on. Let me do I found it here. Let me do a screen share real quick.
Warning: if you're prone to seizures.
If you're prone to seizures, please look away.
I want to know who designed this, but it's whatever. WATEVR. It's nice.
But it clearly says at the top, and this is a very true statement, weather is happening.
Weather is happening.
They tell you right at the top, it's happening.
True.
And the three little deals in the menu at the top, WAT, W-A-T, video, and stickers. So
I love the click for current weather sitch.
You might get rain blobs.
New title.
Lens night thurs. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
High pressure zone. I'm gonna use that. High pressure.
I'm afraid to click on some of this stuff because something ugly might come up while we're screen sharing here. But we are on television. But yeah, it's pretty strange stuff.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, so I'm wondering how many people can actually read that site. But if you have a guest suggestion, I know we've got a lot of them in. Hopefully Bill has taken some very good notes and written all those in, and we'll get them on the calendar, so we appreciate that. So you can send us your emails, your links. We've gotten a lot of them. We're not able to go through all of them tonight, but we did go through a lot of them, so we appreciate you sending those in. Email at weatherbrains.com. Email at weatherbrains.com. You can send us your thoughts, your notes about the show, what you like, what you don't like, and if you have any show suggestions, don't forget we do get a lot of topic ideas from you, the viewers, so we appreciate it.
Yep, so we're going to take a break. John, if you can stay with us for just a little bit, we're going to warn you, we're going to go around for picks of the week, something weather-related. This can be a website or anything remotely related to weather. You can plug your Twitter feed, whatever. We don't care. But just fair warning, John, it's coming around. But we got to take a break. We've got Professor Peters, we've got Tony Rice, we got picks of the week, and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
Hi, I'm Carol Fowler, a former news director and founder of the Soch Reports. I have a question for you. What if it were possible to double your follower growth simply by changing the way you use social media? Here's the thing. When it comes to growing your footprint, as a meteorologist, there are basically 4 possible bottlenecks, any one of which would prevent you from reaching your social goals. And everybody tends to have at least one thing holding them back. The challenge is that it's difficult to have the perspective to identify what's wrong and how to fix it. And that's where the Social Reports comes in. Solving this problem for personal brands is what my team and I do all day, every day. If you've struggled to grow social media fans, or maybe your company is pressuring you to get more page likes, if you've watched your competitors or peers get levels of engagement that make you scratch your head, or you're hoping to improve your social worth to get a raise or maybe a new job, and you've struggled with how to do that, here's what I recommend. Go to our website, thesocialreports.com, and sign up for a free trial. And as a special offer for those of you attending NWA, 20 people who sign up now will have their custom analysis ready to pick up at the conference. We'll schedule time to walk through everything and answer your questions. That's THESOCREPORTS.com. We look forward to working with you.
WeatherBrains 101 with Professor Peters.
As we approach the peak of hurricane season in the tropical Atlantic, the number of disturbances has increased. No surprise there. With the increase, there is a great deal more attention being paid to the tropics. If you are one of those, you've probably seen the use of knots in statements and advisories. So what exactly is a knot? That's spelled K-N-O-T. A knot is a unit of speed equal to 1 nautical mile per hour. A nautical mile is based on the circumference of the Earth and is equal to 1 minute of latitude. It is slightly more than a statute mile used for land measurements. 1 nautical mile is equal to 1.1508 statute miles. Nautical miles are typically used in meteorology, aviation, and in the marine environment for charting and navigating. The term knot is often abbreviated as KT or KN. The term knot dates from the 17th century when sailors measured the speed of their ship by using a device called a common log or chip log. This device was a coil of rope with uniformly spaced knots attached to a piece of wood shaped like a slice of pie. The spacing between knots was 47 feet 3 inches. The piece of wood was lowered from the back of the ship and allowed to float behind it. The line was allowed to play out freely from the coil as the piece of wood fell behind the ship for a specific amount of time. The time was usually measured by a 30-second sand glass, what most of us would call an hourglass. When the specified time had passed, the line was pulled in and the number of knots on the rope between the ship and the wood were counted. The speed of the ship was said to be the number of knots counted. One of the frustrating aspects of meteorology is the proliferation of numeric scales for almost any parameter we measure or forecast. Besides knots and miles per hour, there's also meters per second, just to add to the overall confusion when dealing with the speed of air. If you have a question about the weather, drop an email to question@weatherbrains.com.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your Astronomy Outlook.
Last week, the European Southern Observatory confirmed discovery of a new exoplanet. Proxima Centauri b is inside the habitable zone in our closest neighboring star system, Alpha Centauri. This is the closest Earth-like planet discovered so far, and is just a mere 4.2 light years away. So let's go, right? Let's leave all our political and climate problems behind and go have a fresh start. 4.2 light years is the distance light can travel in a vacuum in 4.2 years. That's about 24.7 trillion miles. Numbers that big are really hard to wrap your head around, so let's look at them in terms of some current records. The world's fastest human, Usain Bolt, has a world record 100-meter dash time that averages out to about 23 miles per hour. That speed, it would take him 120 million years to get there. Despite recent Olympic headlines, Usain Bolt isn't actually the fastest human alive. That record was set back in the 1960s and still belongs to Thomas Stafford, John Young, and Eugene Cernan, who, while aboard Apollo 10, reached nearly 25,000 miles an hour, a speed which shrinks our commute down to about 114,000 years. History shows, though, we don't send humans first, we send the robots first. Last year, the New Horizons spacecraft reached 36,000 miles an hour en route to Pluto. That brings us down to about 77,000 years. Going back to the 1970s, the Helios mission, while in orbit around the Sun, reached 157,000 miles an hour. So we're down around 18,000 years to get to Proxima Centauri b. Clearly, current technology is not going to cut it. If we use the 6-month transit time aimed for in NASA's plans to put boots on Mars by the 2030s, we have no choice but to turn to science fiction to get our crew to Proxima Centauri b. As any good science fiction fan knows, warp factor 1 matches the speed of light, but that still puts our destination 4.2 light years away. Warp is basically a cubic scale, so it would require warp factor 2, or 8 times the speed of light, to shrink the trip down to about 6 months. So it looks like we're stuck here with our problems on Earth for a few more generations. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokey for more spacey stuff like this.
When the weather ball is red, warmer weather is ahead. When the weather ball is white, colder weather is in sight. When the weather ball is green, no change in the weather is foreseen. When colors blink by night or day, precipitation's on the way.
Weather Roundup for August 29th, 2016. The tropics are happening. Invest 99L, the most famous open tropical wave in history, is now tropical depression number 9, and that will likely come up into North Florida as a tropical storm in a few days, long gone by Labor Day. Nate, you got TD8 in your backyard. What's up with that?
Going to kick up the surf along the Outer Banks tonight, tomorrow, perhaps enhance our chance of rain. That's really going to be about it, with outward rip currents and maybe the potential for a little bit of overwash. We are watching what is currently, and just now with the latest update from the Hurricane Center here on Monday night at coming up on 11 o'clock Eastern Time, still tropical depression number 9. That one forecast by most to cut across the southeastern U.S. and reemerge in the Atlantic south of Wilmington. Hopefully it will stay far enough offshore and get out of here in time for the big Labor Day holiday weekend, which is a big travel beach holiday. We don't want to mess that up for folks. We want the beaches not only to be hurricane and tropical storm free, but also free of rip currents and other dangerous things that folks, it's hard to think about that when the sun is shining on you.
Yep, of course, we have a new wave coming off the coast of Africa. I saw in Joe Bob's Weather Center that that's going to be a Category 5 coming up into Mobile Bay in 10 days.
I heard Category 6.
Actually in the Galveston, Kevin, that's coming up your way. So fair warning.
Ready
from Joe Bob. And let's don't forget our friends that listen in Hawaii. We have back-to-back lined up hurricanes in the Pacific. We have Madeline and Lester. And while those will probably be weakening, they'll be close. They're going to see some pretty good wave action, especially on the Big Island. So the tropics, as you might expect, very active. But we got to roll along here. We got to do picks of the week. And Nate, I got to do. I'm the lead story because we have the Category 18 wave down here. So Nate, run with the picks of the week. Floor belongs to you.
All right. What's your pick of the week before you leave?
I like to see the tropical model data in Google Earth format. So my pick of the week, it is a site that offers the tropical model data in KML format for Google Earth, and it is called tropicalatlantic.com, and some other little tidbits there as well. So that'd be mine.
All right. Thank you, sir. Pick of the week from you, Mr. Rick Smith.
Well, you can always count on Jason Samenow to come up with a pick of the week, and certainly the one that came out today, this morning. A headline is News Organizations Are Embarrassing Themselves with Terrible Tropical Weather Reporting. We opened the show with that. I won't dig into it any longer, but if you want to see a good summary of some of the craziness that's been out there today, Jason did a good job of rounding that up earlier today.
The headline involved the words embarrassing themselves. And,
yes.
Fortunately, it was a very pointed but spot-on critique. Kevin Selly, pick of the week, sir.
Before my pick of the week, I'll give a special mention to Rob H., who is rheron828 on Twitter, for tweeting out during this program, the refusal of @KevinSelly to rant is just unacceptable. What's next? Not standing for the anthem? Come on, Kevin, it's bigger than you.
Is outrage.
And my pick of the week is a story from a couple days ago, speaking of tropics, which is kind of neat. NASA Global Hawk alerts NOAA National Weather Service of Gaston's intensification. Apparently the first time NOAA's Weather Service and the NHC used real-time weather data from Global Hawk, a drone unmanned aircraft, to upgrade a tropical storm to a hurricane. So pretty cool.
An interesting tie-in that today is Drone Day. The FAA rules Part 107 of the Title 14 of the Code of Federal Regulations went into effect, making a path for commercial drone users to get licensed and to be able to legally fly their drones. I know a lot of folks that listen to this program are also tech junkies and will be flying drones. And good luck.
Is this just going to be chaos, Nate? Is it going to be? I saw something go fly by that said 600,000 drones will be flying in the next year.
600,000 commercial drones, and that's not counting hobbyists or folks, just flying for fun. That's 600,000 people trying to make a buck.
That's going to be.
This will be the social media of the aviation industry.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. All right. Audrey, pick of the week, ma'am.
Mine is from NOAA, the Weather and Hazards Data Viewer. I'm so glad I came across this site. I've been beating my head trying to get some good max wind gust reports without having to click on like a dozen or 3 dozen weather stations. So very excited to see that. It's very good. And Nate, I was in your neck of the woods this weekend in North Carolina. I was in Charlotte for the 5th time this year so far.
Why call me?
It was a super quick trip. I know they're all super quick trips, but I have to tell you one moment. We got caught on Lake Norman in a thunderstorm on Saturday, and I've never been more terrified in my life. Terrified, like praying that the boat did not flip over. I've never been more terrified, and then it ended up being a fun weekend after that.
Good. Well, I'm glad you had a good time in the Old North State. You and your tourism dollars are welcome anytime.
Yep, and I didn't die on the lake, so very excited.
There you go. John Zarola, pick of the week from you, sir.
Love Lake Norman. What a great spot
beautiful.
that is.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And drones. Yeah, we love drones, too. Drones, we use them all the time. You guys are just talking all kinds of wonderful stuff. The drone videos for the pieces we do, it's just so spectacular. You get such unbelievable, just perspective shots when you're flying drones. So, my cameraman basically travels with the drone on every shoot we go to, and I've gotten to the point where I'm like, put it away. Just put it away. We've got enough drone shots for this piece. But anyway, my pick of the week would be the Federal Alliance for Safe Homes. They do an incredible job. www.flash.org. They do an absolutely spectacular job just on mitigation, place where people can go to see what they need to do to prepare, whether it's a hurricane, an earthquake, wildfire, flooding. They're a wonderfully dedicated folks, and I think that the stuff that they put on their website is very, very, very important, and I wish more people would go to it and look at it. I think we would all be a lot safer if we did.
It's a fantastic site, a fantastic resource. We've had them on the show in the past, and probably have them on again before it's all
Oh yeah.
Done. My pick of the week is an entry from the folks at the WX Junkies, part 1 of a multi-part report. And the way that they present it's talking about colors for watches and warnings and everything, and the way he presented it was fascinating. And they stripped out all of the maps and all of the phenomena and everything and just gridded a box of all the colors. And tornado warnings, there's a lot of red, not a whole lot of anything else. But you get past that, and it's greens and yellows and blues and whites and pinks and everything, and the way it was packaged sort of drove home the point that you get past tornado warnings, that it's sort of all over the place, and you sort of wonder whether folks at home have a chance of being able to keep up with that if they're flipping channels, which we know they do. Bill Murray, a pick of the week from you, and a look at some upcoming programs on the calendar.
Yeah, you only have to hear this 2 more weeks, Nate Johnson. Weather Ready Fest, September 10th in Norfolk. I'm here doing some pre-work the next few days, getting ready for it. It's going to be a huge event at the Nautica Science Center.
Huge. It's going to be huge.
Huge. It's going to be 5,000 people. The only time they ever had more people at the Nautica Science Center is going to be for the Trump rally earlier this year. So we're going to be there on September 10th.
A political rally. That can't stand.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, every time these free timed tickets, because it's a free event, and you only get the weather exhibits. Which one of his flash, by the way, John Zarella. Leslie's
great.
She's been so huge in helping us. I'm across the street from USAA tonight, and they're one of the two Cat 5 sponsors, along with FedEx. And I think it's just very poignant that I'm across the street from them tonight in a Hampton Inn. But it's going to be a huge event. They've made it free for everybody. We want all the Hampton Roads to come out. We're going to have 45 exhibits, 10 speakers. We got a movie of all things. And it's just going to be a blast. That's Saturday, September 10th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Hey, we continue with the Legends theme the next few weeks. Nick Walker from the Weather Channel will be with us on a Tuesday night show. That's September 6th. We missed Labor Day. Brian Peters, pulled his panelist card and said he had to watch the Florida State football game. So we'll be on Tuesday night next week. And then we'll be coming live from the NWA Broadcaster Center. We'll have Legends will be a dime a dozen that night. And then on the 26th, I've got to find somebody for the 19th. So all you folks that have sent in guest suggestions, I'll get to work on those and get us someone for the 19th. But on the 26th, we'll have Phil Klotzbach. So it's going to be a fun month here on Weather Channel. Great on Weather Channel, the WeatherBrains. Thank you, John Zarella, for being with us tonight. You were fascinating and
my pleasure.
One of my favorite guests ever.
And
thank
Bill,
you, my friend.
I have a couple of folks I can send your way for, I guess, maybe even for the 19th. We'll see how things work out.
That would be wonderful. Thank you very much, Nate.
Very good. All right. John Zarella, how can folks find you on the internet? Twitter, email, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, MySpace?
Yeah, on all the above. Tinder? All the above. Yeah, you can Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and I've got a website, johnzarellamedia.com. You can always find me there. And so I'm out there. I'm easy to find. Please do.
And your photog has a drone, so just look up and find the drone, and John Zarella might be standing underneath it or near it.
Exactly.
Well, appreciate you being on the program tonight, and best of luck to you.
Thank you, folks. Much appreciated. It was fun. Really enjoyed it.
Excellent.
It was.
We did
Thank
as
you,
well.
John.
This has been a WeatherBrains. It's the regular weekly original All About the Weather podcast. We normally record the program on Monday nights via Google Hangout live starting at about 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central. Next week, as Bill mentioned, we will have a Tuesday night special for you thanks to the Labor Day holiday. Certainly join us then. Of course, after the show is produced, we are on podcast. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and of course you can always find us at weatherbrains.com. We're on Twitter, Facebook. Find us, send us an email at weatherbrains.com. We'd love to hear from you. And if you are going to be at the National Weather Association annual meeting, come check us out at Weather Ready Fest, and we'll be all the way through the meeting. Just look us up in the program and find us. We'd love to meet you, say hi, take a selfie, all that good stuff. Until next week's Tuesday night special, for everybody here at WeatherBrains, I'm Nate Johnson. Good night. God bless.
Thanks, everybody. Great show.
Great.
Thanks, Bill. That was good.
Yeah. Talk to y'all later.
Bye.
Well, hello, everybody. That's it. Great show. A really fun show tonight. And we're about to do Song of the Night over on Periscope. Follow me on Twitter at Spann, S-P-A-N-N. So thanks for watching WeatherBrains. We'll see you guys next Monday night. Have a great week. God bless and bye-bye.